Time to talk about guns in Marathon. Bungie is making Marathon again, and the developers have mentioned their desire to make a new game while still paying homage to the original trilogy. And since the last games were 2.5D shooters from over 25 years ago, it's obvious that the gunplay and weapons will be very different. Let's go over the weapons from the Marathon trilogy, and what weapons we might think will make a comeback, which ones will probably be out, and which ones may be changed to fit the extraction shooter mold. Firstly, the Marathon trailer and Marathon Vidoc give us a peek at a few possible weapons. In the trailer, we can see the UESC runner carrying what looks like to be some sort of submachine gun. It would seem to bear some resemblance to a P90 with a suppressor. Now the Traxxas runner, on the other hand, has a low-profile scoped rifle with an AUG-loaded magazine. Now we don't see any gunfire, we only see the results of the gunfire. Looking at the Vidoc, we have multiple different screenshots of different weapons, and also a clip of what appears to be different attachments that could be added or removed to different weapons. This is no surprise for anyone who's familiar with extraction shooters, but it will be fun to see if we can customize some of the classic weapons from Marathon. Now let's take a look at the original weapons from Marathon, Marathon 2, and Marathon Infinity. First is the 45 Magnum Mega Class from Marathon 1, an 8-round handgun chambered with high-velocity Teflon rounds. The Magnum has good accuracy, and it has a pretty quick reload. It also boasts the ability to function in hard vacuum. A second Magnum can be found, and the player can dual-wield Magnums. This helps keep the weapon useful as the game continues on and gets a little bit harder. In-game, these pistols can only be fired in alternating fashion. Come Marathon 2, your starting pistol is a 44 Magnum Mega Class A1. This weapon looks different, but functions the same as the 45. You can tell they added a scope, but there is no real game functionality for it. So would this gun make the cut? This gun, or something like it, will most likely be in the new Marathon. And while it may not be your base starting sidearm, I could see it being more of an uncommon to rare tier weapon. It would be like any other Magnum in a video game. It's stronger than a pistol, but with less ammo and a slower firing rate. At its basic level, it might not even start with a scope, but you could probably add it to give it a bit more medium range viability. I could even see adding a stock for some stability. Dual wielding is a whole other topic though, but I would love to see that make a comeback. Dual wielding aside, the 45, I think we'll be seeing it in the new Marathon.
We're done here. Yeah, that wasn't gonna work.
Next is the M75 from Marathon 1 and the MA75B from Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity. This is not your standard MA5B from the Halo universe. This assault rifle has 52 rounds and is also equipped with an underbarrel rotary grenade launcher that carries 7 grenades. While 52 rounds and grenades fired simultaneously sound overly powerful, the accuracy of the primary firing mode is almost non-existent. In a modern game, you'd use burst fire to control the spread of the weapon, but you can't do that in these early games. To try and make sure that you're 100% accurate with this assault rifle, the gun basically becomes a melee weapon. It's a good crowd control weapon, but it doesn't work in space. The MA75 does work quite well at stunning enemies, as it can continually put bullets into them and slow them down. No major changes were made between Marathon 1 and Marathon 2, other than a slight accuracy boost, but it sounds like a flavor text placebo, as it seems to still shoot rather wildly. Will we see this gun again in the new Marathon? I think we will definitely have assault rifles, obviously, in this sort of game. Surely you will be able to do burst fire and control that crazy recoil that the original gun had. According to the handbook, the crazy spread is actually due to a manufacturing error, so they'll probably have figured that out, I'm sure. I could see the MA75B being a standard assault rifle with close to mid-range, with good damage but needs burst fire to be controlled well. The underbarrel grenade launcher is a bit less of a certainty. Maybe underbarrel grenade launchers could be an attachment to multiple different weapon types. Balancing is the big question, however. In the original trilogy, the grenades have a small area of effect, and players can take a few hits from them. They also don't travel too fast, so it could be balanced as a way to punish someone who's camping in a certain spot or trying to do damage around a corner, but it's tough to say. I feel like they could add regular grenades, so why can't they have an underbarrel grenade launcher? I think the gun will make the cut, but we'll see if it has grenades at the end of this.
There's a lot of this we can use. Pretty strong. Yeah.
The Zeus class fusion pistol. This is a favorite of mine, to be sure. The pistol fires up to 20 bolts of fusion per battery. The projectiles are somewhat on the slower side. They're great in PvE and kind of okay in PvP. Its alt fire is a charged blast that eats up more ammo but packs a strong punch. It bears a great similarity in function to the plasma pistol from the Halo series. You can overload the pistol by holding down the alt fire, but if you do it for too long though, you could cause yourself to explode. The only real change for this weapon between the first game and the second game was that it does more damage to mechanical enemies. It can also be fired underwater, but that actually only hurts the user of the weapon. This weapon is definitely a stronger PvE weapon for sure. Since this game will have compilers and maybe some other robotic enemies, the Zeus fusion pistol could do a great deal of damage to them. On the PvP end though, this pistol needs some serious velocity upgrades to make these bolts easier to hit your target. If it were added to the new Marathon, but it was meant to help with PvE, it could still have some uses in PvP. The fusion pistol is very good for pinning someone down. You can fire a whole ton of shots, and at the speed that they are moving, they buy you some time, so you can either run or you can change position, but that would be very situational. One other power of the Zeus pistol was that it could hurt enemy players that had an invulnerability pickup by using the charged attack. I don't know that we'd see an invulnerability pickup or some sort of power up in a extraction shooter. That seems kind of strange, so I doubt that that would be a mechanic, but you never know. This is a sci-fi shooter by Bungie. This pistol I think will make the cut, but it will need to be changed to be viable in PvP. And Terry is very bus-like.
Put the rocket launcher away, Badger. I'm not following you.
Next up is the SPNKR-XP, also known in short as the Spanker. Now this is a crowd favorite. Every Halo fan should recognize this setup. A dual rocket launcher. With an explosive radius of 10 meters, this weapon can demolish all sorts of enemies in a single hit. Only the strongest of enemies can survive more than one direct hit. There was no real change for this weapon between games other than its looks. Obviously this weapon is effective in both PvE and PvP, and it is the most powerful weapon in the game. Now trying to think of this weapon in an extraction shooter. My body just wants to say no, honestly. I don't see how you could add a rocket launcher that can fire twice in quick succession into an extraction shooter for it to be fair at all. We are talking about clone units that will most likely have layers of energy shields, so they probably could take a rocket, but still that somehow feels unfair. It would be rough to balance. Maybe a one-time use with no reloads when it's found, but it would have to work in such a way that you can't one-tap someone or an entire team just because you have the right weapon in hand. This would be a tough sell, but I do love this weapon, and my heart says, make it work somehow, Bungie. Just go for it, I don't care. All I see is white hot rage and barbecue. Now for another fun Geneva Convention breaking weapon is the TOZT-7 Backpack Napalm Unit, or the Toasty for short. A flamethrower that works well on unarmored, fleshy targets. This melts the competition and made enemies shout differently when killed. It's just an entire platoon of aliens. We just cooked. While extremely fun to use, the manual for Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity states that you may have a personality disorder if you like killing people with it so much. The flames can reach up to 20 feet, but it feels a bit shorter than that. Also, you can't see much while you're firing it. It's a very effective weapon, but it does have specific targets that it works well against, and some targets are completely invulnerable to flame, so it depended on who you were fighting. Now this is a tough one to make a decision on whether or not we could actually add this to the game. A flamethrower versus bullets is kind of a hard fight. It could be used as a close quarter weapon, but why would you not just want to use a shotgun in that instance? It could have some range to it, and maybe there will be different damage types that we could take advantage of, maybe heat damage over time, things like that. I feel like it might not fit the vibe they're going for, but this is a part of Marathon and its lore, so why not? Now, if any simulacrums show up, I really hope to hell we do have a flamethrower, but we'll see what we have for AI enemies other than compilers in this game. It would be cool, but I do understand if this is not in their current scope. So hopefully a DLC at some point when things are settled in. Again, this is all speculation for the fun of it, but I kind of feel like the flamethrower might not make the cut. Now for a more infamous weapon, the WSTE M5 Combat Shotgun. It appeared first in Marathon 2. This is a standard sawn-off shotgun that works as you would expect. It can cut down swaths of enemies quickly while in close range. The best part is that you can dual wield these shotguns. This makes for one of the most cathartic shotgun experiences in all of video games. A definite power weapon that is worth using whenever possible. Just don't ask how the reload works. This weapon obviously works great in close range, it can do a great deal of damage and hit multiple targets, but terrible at a distance. Now thinking of the new Marathon, this game will certainly have shotguns I'm sure of it. There is no way that they won't. I'm sure this combat shotgun will make the cut. I think because it does such great close quarters damage and will hardly even touch anything further than 6 meters, it could be a very fair weapon. This shotgun should make the cut, but the question is, will it be dual wieldable? I want to say no, because dual wielding is a whole extra mechanic that I don't even know that they're planning for this game. And I could honestly picture someone in a forum getting mad because of some sad, sweaty dual wielders waiting behind crates with 2 shotguns. This shotgun would be great for ambushes, and games like this do need shotguns. And I just love the dual wielding, and it's a big part of the weapon's identity in the first place. If they do add them with dual wielding, I'm sure the mysterious reload will somehow become slower and probably more realistic to make up for their quick firepower. That, or they'll get the same damage as the Halo 3 Mauler, and so it'll kind of feel like you're getting hit with a damp sponge with some crust on it. It'll be underwhelming for sure. For a final judgment, I think the shotgun will make it, but I don't think dual wielding will make it into this new Marathon game. Now for a weapon that was added in Marathon Infinity, the KKV-7 SMG. This is a silenced submachine gun that shoots much more accurately than the MA-75B. It shoots 10mm flechette rounds, making it strong against biological targets and less powerful against mechanized enemies. It does a great deal of damage very quickly. The downside is the fire rate is extremely fast and ammo is spent very quickly. This makes the SMG a power weapon, as it does so much damage so fast, but there's limited ammo and it can't last for long. It's not a very sustained amount of damage. This is a very, very powerful weapon, especially in PvP. But do we think it'll make the cut? Probably. I mean, the game is definitely going to have different types of SMGs, and there's no reason why it couldn't be this SMG. We could have ammo types, and maybe we could have standard and flechette rounds. Or it's possible that the flechette rounds are just the rounds for this specific gun. Either way, it's a great weapon. And maybe that's the silent SMG we actually see in the trailer. I'm sure most of the weapons, if brought back, will look cosmetically different to some degree, but I think it's a definite yes for this gun. Hopefully only the rare version of this gun hits as hard as the original. It will definitely tear up everyone in a second flat. It is important to note, the silencer really didn't do anything, so we'll see. Lastly, a 4-weapon of unknown name. It is carried by the Enforcers, and can be acquired only by killing one. The weapon appears to fire a projectile of flame. In Marathon 1, this gun fires in a horizontal arc, and fires rather quickly. In Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity, it still fires like an automatic, but fires quite accurately in a single direction. The alt fire shoots to the left and right diagonal direction of the player. Both fire modes can be held down to burn through multiple targets. This weapon's downside is that you can't tell how much ammo you have left, and there's no way to reload it. Once it's spent, you have to drop it, and you'll need to find another one. As one can infer, this does some similar damage to fleshy opponents like the Flamethrower does, but at a greater range, so it has a bit lower of DPS. Will this make it to the game, the new game? This is very dependent on the lore and the story they're going for, because we don't know if we'll actually see all of the 4 race. We know that we're going to see compilers, but will the rest of them be there? Will we see enforcers? Now, enforcers carry these weapons, but they're usually on board 4 ships, and they don't often take part in boarding action or landing parties. It would be unlikely to be finding one on the colony for almost any reason. With that said, though, there is always this possibility, and I do want to say that we're going to see more than just the compilers. If not at launch, I'm sure there will be events that happen that will have groups of more 4 aliens coming in. Again, seeing enforcers on the ground is less likely, but alien weapons are a very Bungie thing to do, and it's very likely we'll be able to arm ourselves with new, unique weapons. As the gun functions in the later games, it fires fast and can do strong damage against lightly armored opponents. It suffers from a similar issue as the Zeus fusion pistol. It's a projectile weapon that has a slower velocity and is outclassed by weapons that shoot bullets. It's hard to see it being viable, but it could be there, or some other alien weapons could be there. I think it could have some uses, but again, if it could get redesigned slightly, I think it could actually be very powerful. I don't think it makes the cut as is, but I guess we'll just have to see. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you'd like to know next about Marathon and the upcoming game. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen, but it's going to be a while before we hear anything. So let's keep looking into Marathon and learning more about it. Thanks, everybody.